H.
¿Invierno es sin H?
¿Seguro?
Bueno, a no ser que estés buscando un SUV, porque entonces viene con H de Hyundai, y H de híbrido, y H de hacerlo fácil. Ahora, llevarte un Tucson o un Kona con el diseño y tecnología que buscas nunca ha sido tan fácil. Consulta condiciones en Hyundai.es.
Non ti accorgi quando piango, quando sono triste e stanca, tu pensi solo per te.
Dolce & Gabbana, the one.
Nobody likes Milhouse. Mr. Largo said it, and for once, Mr. Largo is correct. Nobody likes Milhouse. He is one of the most disrespected characters on The Simpsons. In-universe, they don't treat Milhouse well, and out-of-universe, the writers don't care that much about him. Like, let's consider this. Can you think of a time where a character said something nice about Milhouse? Aside from Samantha Stanky, I mean one of our Simpsons regulars. Has anyone ever given Milhouse his flowers? Or how about this? Are there any Simpsons episodes told primarily from Milhouse's point of view? I think this is a legitimate question. Even miserable wretches like Krusty and Moe have served as our protagonists. They've received the warm and fuzzy, character-validating endings. To be honest, I don't really care about Milhouse. At least, not as much as many other characters. He's just kinda there. And it's weird, because he's definitely had his share of problems. He's sympathetic. Is it something about the way Milhouse stories are told? To figure this out, let's look at his three main storylines: his parents' divorce, his relationship with Lisa, and his friendship with Bart. Maybe these characters will provide the answer. And you know what? We're starting back at home. Okay, so here we are in promising territory for a good Milhouse story. Kirk and Luann's divorce was a notable status quo shift. And, as we've seen with others, these continuity changes are amazing opportunities for the audience to discover what makes these characters tick. We see some of this happen in A Milhouse Divided, right after that fateful dinner party. Homer and Marge talk about the split, and Marge remarks, "You know who the real victim is in all of this? Milhouse." Then we cut to him sitting sadly on the bus, with even folks like Nelson and Kearney comforting him and assuring him things will get better. Later, Milhouse acts out aggressively, and Luann makes no attempt to reel him back in. It's clear that the divorce is taking a toll on him. Finally, the writers are giving Milhouse some depth. Then the episode turns into a Homer and Marge marriage crisis, closing with a second wedding. The end. After this point, we get very little of the Van Houten family dynamic. Mostly small peeks at Kirk as a divorced dad. They lean into Kirk's patheticness, with Milhouse providing frustrating updates about Luann. In season 15, we get Milhouse doesn't live here anymore. Once again, Milhouse is acting out, going on a rampage during a field trip. This is because he's moving to Capital City, as his mom got a new job there. This episode touches on the disruptive aspects of kids' lives after their parents' divorce, possibly having to move school districts and say goodbye to their friends. Finally, we'll see a tangible effect on Milhouse's personality. Then it turns into an episode about Bart becoming best friends with his sister. The end. It feels like the writers realized that they weren't doing anything meaningful with the storyline. Perhaps they were running out of divorced dad jokes, because in season 17's Milhouse of Sand and Fog, they walked it back. After reconnecting at a Pox party, Kirk and Luann attempt a trial unseparation. They tell him, unlike the breakup, this is not your fault. Milhouse is overjoyed by the news. We get an entire montage of how wonderful his life will be again, now that they're back together. However, as both of his parents deprioritize him, Milhouse yearns for the divorce days where they were competing for his love. We're finally getting a sense of how conflicted Milhouse feels about the whole situation. Then it turns into a Homer and Marge marriage crisis, culminating in a danger set piece in a river. The end. The Van Houten's divorce is a good example of how not all Spotlight episodes are created equal. There are two main types. There are the true Spotlights, where the secondary character is the full or partial protagonist, and we follow along with their perspective. And then there's the more reactive spotlight,
Déjate llevar por
where it's
nuestros
about
sabores
how the
asiáticos con
secondary
Vitasia.
character
Pollo
affects
desmenuzado por
the Simpson family.
4,99. Costillas
It's
de...
like the difference between Sweet Seymour's Badass Song and Grade School Confidential for Principal Skinner. The first episode is fundamentally about Bart's feelings about getting Skinner fired. We follow Bart. While the second one follows Skinner and Edna's relationship, and Bart supports their story. Both of Milhouse's classic era spotlights fell into that reactive category. They were fundamentally Bart stories. And so, the Van Houten divorce episodes followed suit. They weren't about giving Milhouse depth, they were about enabling new story possibilities for Bart and Homer and Marge. Ironically, the first time Milhouse ever got a true spotlight was after the divorce, in season 19's Little Orphan Millie. This is the episode where Kirk and Luann remarry, thereby slamming the door on this plotline. On their honeymoon, they go overboard and are lost at sea. Milhouse, living with the Simpson family, has to confront the reality of his parents' deaths. Instead of withdrawing, Milhouse decides that he has to be a man now. He becomes a moody loner, declaring to Nelson, "Go ahead, beat me up, then maybe I'll feel something." Milhouse is obviously extremely depressed, but seems to be leaning into this persona, and it's actually working for him. Later, we find out that Kirk and Luann survived, and Bart and Milhouse eventually crash land into them. It's kind of weird how they had an entire divorce plotline built for the Van Houtens, but they don't do much with Milhouse until they're totally out of the picture. After that, we've gotten small glimpses of their family dynamic. We've seen Luann and Milhouse out and about on occasion, but most of the substance revolves around his relationship with his dad. In season 24's Hardly Kirking, Milhouse pretends to be Kirk, creating mischief all around town. When they get caught, Milhouse tells him that it was fun living his life and would love to grow up to be just like him. Aww. Milhouse and Kirk aren't always this heartwarming though. In Dad Behavior, Milhouse becomes disillusioned with his dad and ends up bonding with Homer, who happens to be feuding with Bart. And Bart, in response, starts hanging out with Kirk. This is another instance where Milhouse is a pawn in a Simpson family conflict. But it does end with Kirk and Milhouse declaring they love each other. Milhouse says, "You're my favorite guy that Mom's brought home." Obviously, this show is called The Simpsons, so the Van Houten dynamic is always going to be on the back burner. They're called supporting characters for a reason. Their story is always going to reflect on The Simpsons in some way. It is really weird that the writers had Kirk and Luann divorced and then didn't do much with it. Now, to be fair, Milhouse did get unlucky in this regard. The writers weren't able to use Luann for a while because Maggie Roswell left the show when management cheaped out on paying her. When she finally did return, several years had passed, and the writers just gave up on the storyline. I think Kirk and Luann's divorce is the most squandered story opportunity in Simpsons history. That The Simpsons never did a serious examination of what being a child of divorce is like. Milhouse never
Did you
got
know
that
that this
episode about
actual
him.
toy once
This is
helped
something
with an
that
episode
so
of
many
The
people in
Simpsons.
America
This is
have
Bart
experienced,
Simpson, made
and it
by
was the
Dan
perfect
D in
opportunity to cover it.
1990. In the
The stuff in
1995
Milhouse
Treehouse of
Divided
Horror episode
or
was a
Milhouse
part called
Doesn't Live Here
Homer
Anymore
Cubed, which
isn't
Homer
enough.
enters a
This was
3D
a story
world,
hook
and
that
for the
was
first
unique to
time,
him,
Homer and
a
Bart are
brand new
shown in
dimension
3D.
that
It
could
was
have been
groundbreaking
explored.
at the time. But
The
while
Simpsons
designing
writers
the
were
3D model
extremely
of Bart, the
interested in
animators
tackling
did not know
Nelson's
how they
domestic
would
issues,
treat Bart's hair.
whereas
However, they
Milhouse's
realized
misery
that there were
is
these
played
vinyl
for
dolls
laughs.
that had been made
They'll
and
do shit
purchased
like
one
this.
to use as
Like,
a model.
what are you guys
and this
doing
is
here?
the very toy they
I mean,
used.
I
Did
like
you know
dark
that
humor,
this actual
but
toy
that's
once
really
helped?
bleak. So, this is less of a case of the Van Houtens don't like Milhouse.
Alright
and
guys,
more
how
of
did you
a,
like this
the
update?
writers
This
don't like
update was
Milhouse.
awesome.
If
Me
they
and
did,
so many
it
others
wouldn't have
got
taken
so
them
much
19
cool
seasons
stuff.
to
Like,
get
look
around
at this
to this
crazy
episode.
block skit.
It's
Like,
clear
this
Milhouse
is
is
awesome.
viewed
I
as
hate
strictly
it.
a
Bro,
supporting
who are
character
you? I'm
for the
Goalie.
Simpson family.
Goalie. Oh, I kind
So,
of forgot you
let's
existed.
go
Is
there
that why I
next.
don't have milestones? Yeah, I still don't have milestones. How do I still not have milestones?
Oh, man.
Okay, well, do you
This
want
part
milestones?
is going to
Yes.
be
Too
painful.
bad.
We all know
Want to get
that
this secret
Milhouse
skin
is
early that
attracted
matches
to
your
Lisa,
avatar in
and that
New versus
Lisa
Homer?
doesn't
This is
feel
my
the same
avatar
way.
and this is the skin.
This has
First,
been
you need
going
to have a
on
friend
for
first.
like 25
Second, you
years.
have to be in the lobby.
Milhouse's
Then you have to
patheticness
wait for the
in
match
this
to
regard
almost
is
start
very
before the
well
match
documented.
starts. You need to
On
leave
the
the
other
server,
hand,
then rejoin
as
last
we've seen in
second.
Flash
Now you
Forward,
should automatically join your
Milhouse
friend.
did
You should
eventually
give
marry
her.
Lisa.
It only works for one
So it can't
round.
be all
Want to
bad
get this-
form,
If you make a
right?
level with only
right? Early on, they played Milhouse's crush for laughs, largely at his expense. Cue him crying in the car, Milhouse doesn't count, Lisa's trying to bring out the Milhouse in Nelson. They've been married in an anthology segment and in numerous fantasy sequences, and Lisa is repulsed by him in each. Also, I think she gets him killed in one of them. In season 10, we did get an instance of Lisa actively pursuing Milhouse, but it's clear that this is only out of desperation. In season 16, future drama, things are finally looking up, as the two of them are dating and going to senior prom together. Oh whoops, Lisa dumps him shortly afterward. This episode very pointedly positions Milhouse as Lisa's bad ending. If she doesn't go to Yale, she has to settle for Milhouse, which she obviously doesn't want. And he even acknowledges and encourages this reality, whining that Bart is stopping her from ruining her life. Milhouse does not subscribe to the "I just want her to be happy" school of love. Interestingly though, after this point, the writers started teasing that maybe Lisa does like Milhouse a little, or that there is a version of Milhouse she might be into. In a season 17 B-plot, Milhouse tutors her in Italian, taking her on a romantic Vespa ride to Little Italy. Lisa likes this confident Italian Milhouse, even giving him a kiss. She quickly snaps out of it though, after she catches him with another girl. But the point is that for once, Lisa is portrayed as being interested in him. In that episode where Kirk and Luann disappear, Lisa is totally drawn to the new loner Milhouse. She says he is so brave and holds his hand. Loner Milhouse is getting all the love. Even Nelson wants to save him. In another episode, Milhouse comes to the conclusion that chicks dig Brandon. In the terrible, terrible sequel episode, their marriage has crumbled further, to the point that, when Milhouse becomes a zombie, this is an improvement. Lisa finds him so much more interesting now, and doesn't want him to be cured. She eventually does the right thing, but it doesn't matter anyway, where Milhouse commiserates with will mature into someone she could love, Springfield. Already getting nervous about this next part. Bart is the most important character to Milhouse functionally. He kinda has to be, since he was created to specifically support Bart's stories. Well, and to sell Butterfingers. The writers basically abandoned Richard and Lewis because Milhouse served the role of Bart's friend that well. They have written so many sequences of Bart and Milhouse having fun together, like going on a psychedelic squishy bender or camping out in the mall. Milhouse tends to be involved in Bart's big projects, like buying Radioactive Man #1, infiltrating Shelbyville, and going on a road trip. Oh, is Bart doing a new prank? Milhouse is right there next to him, the perfect partner in crime. I don't think anyone could argue that Bart hates Milhouse or is trying to get rid of him, considering the two of them hang out all the time. That being said, like most friends, Bart and Milhouse do fight. Milhouse is not always the most loyal or compassionate buddy. Like, remember after Bart yells at him at church how much Milhouse tortures Bart with his soul? Milhouse loved turning the tables on his friend. In season 13, when Bart breaks up with Greta, Milhouse has no shame about being Greta's rebound. She's with the house now. In season 25, after Bart eats a dead frog and becomes a pariah, Milhouse quickly abandons him. He doesn't return until the very end of the episode. In season 30, after a disagreement about an Itchy and Scratchy reboot, Milhouse dumps Bart, and his new group of friends chases after him. And, most damningly, in that episode where he moves to Capital City, Milhouse humiliates Bart when he visits. To be fair, he does get Bart's begrudging consent and whispers, "I'll always love you, Bart." But come on, Bart literally took a flight to Capital City just to get shit on by Milhouse. On the other hand, if anyone deserves to get back at Bart, it's Milhouse. They are best friends, but Bart